ग्लोबल स्किल डेवलपमेंट मिशन में आपका स्वागत है।
All right, I've got a bunch of other cool things that I want to try and pack into this exercise for you. I'm not really keeping count, but it's at least 2 or 3 very cool options and features for you. And I love packing all this stuff into these exercises. I hope you're enjoying all this and taking lots of notes. All right, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to take this image, this photograph that I've gone and cropped and rotated and kind of messed up. I want to take them back to the last saved version, which for myself was the version that we saw when I first opened them up. I haven't saved them yet, okay? Photoshop has this really handy revert command, which is found underneath the File menu. F12 is your keyboard shortcut. So when I choose File Revert, what that does is it takes my file back to the last time that I saved them. Okay? Sometimes I'll get some kind of crazy idea like, oh, what if we throw a drop shadow onto it and a bevel and emboss, and I'll throw this other filter, and I get all these crazy ideas for a special effect. What I'll do is I'll save my file, go forward 5 or 6 steps in my lunatic idea and decide that the idea is stupid, and then just choose File Revert, and it takes me all the way back. So there's sort of a safety net there for me, which is great. Okay, so that was the first thing that I wanted to show you. I had to work in the revert command somewhere. That's where I worked it in. It's a great command, a great feature to keep in mind as you're working along in your projects inside Photoshop. Here's the next thing that I want to show you. This is an alternative method for sizing and cropping and positioning your images. I'm going to use the example of working on a web-related project. So I know I'm going to be working in pixels. What I'm going to do is I've got, of course, the photo open that I want to incorporate into my web project. What I'm going to do, though, is I'm going to go and create a brand new blank document inside Photoshop. Okay, follow me on the magical mystery tour here. I'm in web design mode, so I'm going to make sure my unit of measurement is set to pixels there. Okay. And the width that I'm going to use for this guy, I would look to my code or my layout, maybe inside Dreamweaver or WordPress, to figure out the dimensions of the image. Okay, so let's say, for instance, and this is just the example that I'm going to use here. Let's say, for instance, the space that I have inside my layout reserved for this photo is going to be 400 pixels by 400 pixels. Okay, just like that. All right. And if you'll recall from our earlier conversation on resizing your images, in the world of web design, the resolution doesn't matter. Okay? I'll go ahead and click on OK, and of course, I get a brand new document sitting there ready to go. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this file, this brand new blank file that I've gone and created, as the actual document that I'm going to use inside my web layout. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the barn that we have here and I'm going to move them over into this new file that you and I have created. Now, there's a couple of different ways to do this. What we could do is we could use our move tool. So make sure that your move tool is activated inside the toolbox. And then all I would do is simply drag the image, drag from one image, I should say, into another image like so. That's really all there is to it, something like that. Okay? That's one option. Another option is I could copy from one file and then paste into another file. That would be perfectly fine as well. Okay? So I moved my image over. That's the important thing. Okay? I'm going to go back to the original and I'm going to close him out. I'm done with him for now. Now what I want to do is I want to take this guy and I want to size and position him inside the new document that you and I have created. And to do so, we're going to use a command called free transform inside Photoshop. And this is a command that you're going to use a lot inside Photoshop. Okay? He's found underneath the edit menu. Let's go edit and then down to free transform. You'll want to memorize this keyboard shortcut or add it to your sticky note that's hanging off the bottom of your monitor. Control T or Command T on your keyboard. Okay? Now when I choose free transform, notice that I get some lines appearing inside my image, but they're kind of running off the edges and so on. What happens here, and let me just scale out the size of my document window. What happens is the original photo, the barn, is falling off the edges of the new document. He's still there, by the way. He's not lost. There's still image in there. It's just not appearing inside the document window at this time. Okay? So, as you can see with the free transform, I can drag my image around inside this new document window. Or what I can do, very much like the crop tool, which we saw earlier, is I can use the resize handles that appear at the top, the bottom, the right, the left, and in all four corners as well. But I want to make sure that I constrain my proportions. I don't want the carnival funhouse mirror effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my Shift key, and simultaneously, while Shift is being held down, I'm going to drag on my corners something like this to size and position my image like so. Okay, so I'm going to try and sort of center them inside the document window. Maybe holding down Shift, I'll scale them up just a little bit, something like that. And then again, very much like the crop tool, I'm going to bring my cursor outside of the free transform frame. I get the curved double-headed arrow, and now I can click and drag to rotate my image. As a matter of fact, you can go kind of wild here. So all I'm doing is I just want to try and straighten this guy out as best I can, maybe about there. I know it's not perfect, but somewhere in there. Okay, and I might spend a moment here kind of positioning and scaling this guy. You can use your arrow keys on your keyboard, by the way, as well to position this guy. That's called micro positioning. And then to lock in this change, either hit your Enter key on your keyboard or double click inside the free transform frame. That's all there is to it. Okay? From here, I would save the file out into a web-friendly file format and load them into my code in my example of setting this guy up for a web project. So there you go. There's a bunch of extra things for you. The revert command, an alternative method for sizing and scaling your documents. I showed you how to take an image and move it from one document into another document. And you also got introduced to the free transform command inside Photoshop. Do you remember the keyboard shortcut? Control or Command T on your keyboard. And by the way, if you're inside the free transform frame, as I am here, and you want to get out of it, you don't want to use it anymore, just tap your escape key on your keyboard.